Hey there, second graders. I told you I'd see you later for our next installment of Flora and Ulysses. Now, it's been a few days since we've read Flora and Ulysses, and you may recall, or you may not recall, that Flora and Ulysses were in the home of Dr. Meacham, who was about to bring them jelly sandwiches. Flora and Ulysses was also looking at a really interesting painting of a giant squid destroying a sailboat. And Flora had one way of looking at the painting. She said the squid is a villain. And Dr. Meacham had a different take on it. She felt like the squid was doing what it was doing because it was lonely, and loneliness makes us do terrible things. And the painting was there to remind her of that. Anyway, chapter 39, the tears roll off. Dr. Meacham came out of the kitchen holding a pink plate with small sandwiches on it. She sat down next to Flora. "You are enjoying the horsehair sofa?" she said to Flora. "I guess," said Flora. She wasn't sure exactly how someone enjoyed a horsehair sofa. "You will eat a jelly sandwich," said Dr. Meacham. She extended the plate to Flora. Ulysses leapt off of Flora's shoulder and into her lap. He sniffed the plate. "Our patient is hungry," said Dr. Meacham. "He never had breakfast," said Flora. She took 2 sandwiches and handed one to Ulysses. This sofa," said Dr. Meacham, "is the sofa of my grandmother. She was born on this sofa in Blundermeechin. She lived the whole of her life there, and she is buried there in a dark wood. But that is a different story. What I meant to say is when I was a girl in Blundermeechin, I sat on this sofa and spoke with my grandmother about inconsequential things well into the gloom of the evening. That is what a girl in Blundermeechin did in those days. She was expected to speak of inconsequential things as the gloom of the evening descended. Also, she must knit. Always the gloom was descending in Blundermeechin. Always one was knitting outfits for the little trolls." "What little trolls?" said Flora. "And where's Blundermeechin?" "Never mind about the trolls for now. I meant only to say that life was very gloomy back then, and one was always knitting." "Sounds kind of lousy," said Flora. "It was exactly this. Lousy," said Dr. Meacham. She smiled. Her dentures were very bright. There was a smear of grape jelly on one of her fake incisors, which is one of those teeth right there. Flora reached for another sandwich. Had terrible things can happen to you ever warned against eating jelly sandwiches in the house of a woman from Blundermeechin? She didn't think so. "Your father is a lonely man," said Dr. Meacham. "Also very sad. To leave you. When your parents divorced, this broke his heart." "It did?" said Flora. "Oh, yes. Mr. George Buckman has sat in this horsehair sofa many times. He has talked of his sadness. He has wept. This sofa has seen the tears of many people. It is a sofa that is good for tears. They roll right off it, you see." Her father had sat on this couch and wept as the gloom of the evening descended? Flora suddenly felt like she might cry too. What was wrong with her? "Seal blubber," she thought. The words steadied her. She handed another sandwich to Ulysses. "Your father is very capacious of heart," said Dr. Meacham. "Do you know what this means?" Flora shook her head. "It means the heart of George Buckman is very large. It is capable of containing much joy and much sorrow." "Oh," said Flora. For some reason, she heard William Spiver's voice saying that the universe was a random place. "Capacious heart," said Dr. Meacham's voice. "Random universe," said William Spiver's voice. Capacious, random, heart, universe. Flora felt dizzy. I'm a cynic, she announced for no particular reason and in a too loud voice. Oh, bah, cynics, said Dr. Meacham. Cynics are people who are afraid to believe in things. She waved her hand in front of her face as if she were brushing away a fly. Do you believe in, things? Said Flora. Yes, I believe, said Dr. Meacham. She smiled her too bright smile again. You have heard of Pascal's wager? No. Pascal had it that since it could not be proven whether God existed, one might as well believe. He did, because there was everything to gain by believing and nothing to lose. This is how it is for me. What do I lose if I choose to believe in something? I lose nothing. Take the squirrel, for instance, Ulysses. Do I believe he can type poetry? Sure, I do believe it. There is much more beauty in the world if I believe such a thing is possible. Flora and Dr. Meacham looked at Ulysses. He was holding half a sandwich in his front paws. There were blobs of grape jelly in his whiskers. Do you know what a superhero is? Said Flora. Sure, I know what a superhero is. Ulysses is a superhero, said Flora, but he hasn't really done anything heroic yet. Mostly he's just flown around. He lifted a vacuum cleaner over his head. He wrote some poetry. He hasn't saved anyone, though, and that's what superheroes are supposed to do, save people. Who knows what he will do, said Dr. Meacham. Who knows whom he will save? So many miracles have not happened. Yet. Flora watched as one of the jelly blobs on Ulysses's whiskers trembled and fell in slow motion to the horsehair sofa. All things are possible, said Dr. Meacham. When I was a girl in Blundermeakin, the miraculous happened every day, or every other day, or every third day. Actually, sometimes it didn't happen at all, even on the third day. But still, we expected it to happen. You see what I'm saying? Even when it didn't happen, we were expecting it. We knew the miraculous would eventually come. There was a knock at the door. See, said Dr. Meacham, this will be your father, Mr. George Buckman. Flora stood and went to the door and opened it. It was her father, and he was smiling. Again, still, which did seem kind of miraculous. Hey, Pop, she said. You see, said Dr. Meacham. He smiles. Flora's father's smile got bigger. He took off his hat. He bowed. George Buckman, he said. How do you do? Flora couldn't help it. She smiled too. She was still smiling when a noise that sounded like the end of the world echoed through the hallway of the Blixen Arms. One minute her father was standing there with his hat in his hands, smiling, and the next minute, Mr. Klaus, the cat one, came out of nowhere and landed right on top of George Buckman's unprotected head. Oh dear. So for chapter 40, we have some graphic novel, comic book panels, and I'll show you what they look like. Chapter 40, Vanquished. Fortunately, a superhero was present. Sunny side up. Whoa. Cat down the hallway. For the love of Pete. Holy Bagamba. Vanquished. And the superhero was enormously, inordinately pleased with himself. He felt immensely powerful. He felt like writing a poem. Go Ulysses, vanquishing that terrible cat. All right, my dears. Let's see. I think we can read one more chapter. Chapter 41, I Promise. They were in the car. Flora's father's hands were on the steering wheel at 10 o'clock and 2. Flora was sitting up front and Ulysses' head was out the window. They were heading back to Flora's mother's house in spite of Flora's protests. "We have to go back," said her father. "We have to return at the regular Saturday afternoon time. We have to act normal, natural, unconcerned." Flora wanted to object, but she could read the writing on the wall. Or rather, she could read the words that hovered above her and her father and the squirrel. Destiny could no longer be forestalled. The arch nemesis must be faced. "Holy bagamba," said her father. His right ear was wrapped in a huge amount of gauze. His head looked lopsided. "Holy unanticipated occurrences! A squirrel vanquished a cat." He shook his head and he smiled. "And now it's time for another battle," said Flora. "Everything will be fine," said her father. "So you say," said Flora. It started to rain. All right, my dears. I will see you tomorrow for our next installment of Flora and Ulysses. And I will see you later for our class meeting.